The match between Liverpool and Manchester United ended in a 2-2 result, which is a better result for Manchester United than it probably is for Liverpool at this stage of the season. But we're coming up onto sort of 2 months when Ruben Amorim has been in charge. So in this video, we'll take a look at how it's been going for 2 months, what my thoughts are on it, how we can improve, and what's gone wrong, what's gone right. We'll take a look at this in the entire video. But please subscribe and like if you haven't already. If you're wondering why should I like and subscribe, why should I follow this guy, I do have some pretty good predictions about Amorim, and I've been spot on a few of them. Here's a few of them just so you can see them. The next player I'm going to go with is Amad Diallo. So you could make a case for a few wingers in this United team. And Amad Diallo, I caught his eye at Sunderland, or he caught my eye, should I say, at Sunderland. He's a great offensive player. And even so, maybe not even as a wing-back, Amorim's wingers are very good as well. Trincao, Pedro Gonçalves, Marcus Edwards, Pablo Sarabia, just to name a few that have flourished under Amorim. And another one with Harry Maguire. Now, hear me out before you click off the video and you dislike. Hear me out. Sebastian Coates, the shirt I've got on that wall there, before Ruben Amorim took over, he was sort of labelled as a joke. He was going to be sold. He gave away 3 penalties in one game and got sent off in that same season before Amorim joined. And he was seen as a joke within Sporting. Within the league itself, he was being called overrated. He was going to be sold for, I think, 8 million. Since then, Amorim saved Coates' career. And I can see some similarities between Sebastian Coates and Harry Maguire. And lastly, this one on Marcus Rashford. Number 3. Again, a controversial one. I'm going with Marcus Rashford. And again, it's sort of a hear me out / let me land one, because I think Marcus Rashford is someone who is loved by Man United fans, and the guy seems like a very nice guy in terms of what he's done, for children and for people like that. He just seems like a nice guy in general. But in terms of ability on the football pitch, he's 27. I think it's time to stop talking about Rashford like he's an up-and-coming prospect now. And I think he's still given that benefit of the doubt from a lot of Manchester United fans and pundits. He's 27. I don't know if he fits in Amorim's system as a winger or a striker. Maybe more as a striker. I did see Gary Neville say, can he get Rashford to 25 goals? That's not an Amorim job. That's not what Amorim has done. You've got guys like Gyökeres who he's done it with, but he didn't do it with guys like Paulinho, guys like Thiago Tomas, guys like Slimani. That's not really Amorim's A game, so to speak. And I think Rashford doesn't have the ability anymore. And I have made a video about Marcus Rashford in the past as well, so make sure you check that one out, link in the description, and it'll be at the end of this video. If you want to see how Ruben Amorim will dealt with it, how he's dealt with it in the past, that'll be the video for you. But this is going to be sort of an entire conversation about how I think Ruben Amorim has gotten on in this sort of 2-month period, what's gone right, what's gone wrong. So please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and let's get into the video. So as of recording on Sunday, Man United are currently in 13th place, 1 below Tottenham, and on 23 points. They're level on points with West Ham. They're 1 point off Tottenham and only 3 points off Brentford, which put them to 11th. And to be fair, the sort of stretch from 6th to 13th is about 12 points. So it's something that, Manchester United could definitely make up on the season. And I think they will eventually overtake teams like Brentford, Brighton, Aston Villa. Maybe not Aston Villa, but I think Fulham as well, maybe Bournemouth. I think, the season's still long. Manchester United will still have a budget in January to bring in players, and they'll probably sell some players. But as of now, they're 13th in the Premier League. They're currently 7th in the Europa League, which means which as of things stand, they go into the next round of the Europa League. If they are qualifying, they get a sort of a buy-in. Then they have to go in sort of the knockout rounds, so they go straight into the next round. If they do keep it up, their form in the Europa League under Ruben Amorim has been very good. They've obviously won the last 2 games, one against Bodo Glimt in a 3-2, and one against Victoria Pleasant 2-1 as well. So Amorim has done well on that front, definitely. And unfortunately, they did get knocked out of the EFL Cup to Tottenham on the 19th of December. They still are in the FA Cup, but that hasn't, happened yet. That game hasn't happened. And they have a tough test in the FA Cup as well against Arsenal. So that's sort of the background we have on Ruben Amorim. Of course, he came in sort of mid-November after international break, after killing it with Sporting, not losing a single game this season, and just being on fire offensively, to a Manchester United side which, hasn't been performing as well as maybe people thought it should have under Ruben Amorim. And as of right now, in the Premier League, Ruben Amorim and Manchester United have not won the last 4 games. They have 3 losses and 1 draw, and their last win actually came against Manchester City in a 2-1 win. They've also drew games to Ipswich, which was Ruben Amorim's first game in charge. They did beat Manchester United 4-0, but then lost to Arsenal the next game as well. So It's not been the greatest start for Amorim. But before we go into sort of the negatives, let's look at what's gone right so far for Ruben Amorim. First of all, of course, we've got Amad Diallo. He has been a sort of bright spot in this Ruben Amorim team that hasn't been really great offensively. And Diallo's come in, didn't get that many chances under Erik ten Hag. He's come in and he's proven that he deserves a new contract, which he should be getting hopefully soon. And he's been absolutely on fire. Against Manchester City, he was incredible. Against Liverpool, of course, he scored and was very good in that game as well. And I think Ruben Amorim has Diallo as sort of his sort of main vocal point of the team. I think if you look at the team, you look at the starting 11, I think the guys that are in there 100% of the time will be Onana for now. I don't know if Amorim goes out and buys another goalkeeper. There has been rumours that maybe he will go get another goalkeeper. And I think you look at guys like Mazraoui, Ugarte, and of course Diallo and Bruno Fernandes as well. Anything else I think is sort of expendable in this team. You could also make a case for Harry Maguire as well. He's been decent under Ruben Amorim, but I think maybe if centre-backs come in, who knows if he gets replaced. But Diallo for me has been incredible. The attacking outlet he produces, his speed, his finishing ability as well. Seems that one all improved under Amorim, but if you watched him back at Sunderland, you'd know that he can score goals and he can do well in these type of environments, in these positions. And he's been sort of played as a winger, he's been played as a wing back. He can be very versatile in that stage, and he's been the best performer of Manchester United. And, I hate to, toot my own horn again, but in that prediction video, where I said 3 players who will thrive under Ruben Amorim, one of them was Amad Diallo. And, I feel I was spot on with that one. And people might say, it was an easier guess, but I don't really think so. You look at the quality, or, just in terms of the players that Amorim has at wing, and not in terms of quality, but maybe in terms of quantity. You've got Anthony, you've got Diallo, of course, you've got Garnacho, you've got Bruno Fernandes, he can play on the wing role. You've, of course, got Marcus Rashford. You've got Xerxes, who can move out onto the wings. And I think Diallo has been so good for Ruben Amorim, and I think a contract extension is next in line for him, and I do think maybe Amorim will build around Diallo and he'll be one of the vocal points in the attack, similar to what Pedro Gonçalves was for his time at Sporting. But yeah, for me, I think Diallo has definitely been the brightest positive in this situation, and he's really taken the opportunity. He has grabbed it by both hands, and he's proven that he deserves the opportunity. And I think he'll be in Amorim's 11 and in Man United's system for years to come now. Number 2. And this one could be seen as sort of a 50-50 positive. And I mentioned it a bit earlier, but with Harry Maguire as well, I feel like he's done so well under Ruben Amorim. And Ruben Amorim has signed him to a new contract, or he signed him to a new contract. Patrice Evra says he should get the armband back. And I'm in agreement. I do like Bruno Fernandes, but I think Harry Maguire is someone who Amorim wants leading the team. Amorim loves a centre-back as his captain, or sort of a defensive midfield player. He, of course, had Sebastian Coates as his captain for his time at Sporting, also vice captains. He had guys like Luis Neto. His current captain before he left was Morten Hjulmand, holding midfielder, and Brigantu was the vice captain as well, another holding midfielder. So I think he prefers the more vocal, the more loud defenders than an attack. And I do think Bruno Fernandes does maybe rub his teammates the wrong way sometimes, with all his throwing up in the air and stuff like that, and his constant moaning. I think Sancho at one point even told him to stop moaning, what's the point? But I think Maguire has been great under Ruben Amorim, but don't get me wrong, the defence has been one of the issues as well. They're letting too many goals in, especially from set pieces. They all fall asleep there. And I think Maguire, of course, is to blame with that, but I do think out of the centre-backs he's had, I think Yoro has been decent enough in his development, although we've not seen a lot of him. But I think Maguire, out of Martinez and De Ligt, has been arguably the best centre-back. Obviously, that might not be a stellar recommendation, a stellar positive, just because how bad Martinez and De Ligt have been. But yeah, I think Maguire's been improving. I think he should get a new contract, and he probably should be the new captain as well. And number 3, and the final positive I have for now, is just Ruben Amorim's demeanor. He is not, going into games saying, we should have won this, we should have done that, the referee's this, referee's that. He puts the blame on the players and on himself. And he's been saying that Man United do need a shot because some of these players are too comfortable. And I think that is the best method Amorim is going to do and going to have to sort of spur these players on, because I do think a lot of them, especially under Erik ten Hag, where they were highly paid players. They didn't really, I'm not saying they didn't try, of course, because they're footballers, but they didn't really want it as badly as other teams did, and it really showed. And I think Amorim has said a shock needs to come into these players, and they might be in a relegation battle. I think that was a bit of hyperbole or hyperbole even from Ruben Amorim, but I think looking at it, they are. If you look at the points differentials between sort of the bottom half and the top half, there's still a lot of points between them. But if Man United continue how they're playing, I think they're going to be in trouble. And Amorim has said this, the players need a shock. The players need to step up. And I think he is trying to do that to some of the players. Obviously, Rashford was the biggest example. But I also think that was something that Ruben Amorim did deliberately. He's saying if, Rashford is sort of the main guy of Manchester United, who is, homegrown hero, was loved by many fans, was prolific in his first few years. He's been singled out because he's not trying hard enough. And if someone like Marcus Rashford is getting singled out, then who's going to stop Ruben Amorim singling out, Bruno Fernandes if they're not trying hard? Harry Maguire, Højlund, Mazraoui, these guys. And I think it sends a message to these guys, look, you need to work hard. You need to try. Otherwise, you're going to be like Marcus Rashford and you're going to be on the sidelines. And maybe Marcus Rashford leaves in January. Maybe he stays and Amorim using him as a bench option. He's not been in the last 2 games, I believe, due to illness. I don't know if that is the case or it's just Ruben Amorim saying, he's not playing for other reasons. But he said it's illness and I intend to believe him at this point. But yeah, I think he's done well with just his demeanor, his approach to interviews as well. He's been interviewed by Gary Neville. He's had some words with, Roy Keane. Even Ed Sheeran's had a go at Ruben Amorim at some point. But, I think the way he's handled the media has been very good. He's obviously very well media trained and he was like that Sporting as well. He knows what to say, he knows not what to say. And I think he's done very well. And I think that definitely is a positive where I look at Erik ten Hag and, in his interviews, he was always like, oh, we deserve more, we deserve this, we deserve that. But at the end of the day, he wasn't really doing the job that was needed. And I think he tried to gloss it over a lot of his times with the words he said. But Ruben Amorim is going to be to the point, and I think it's what the players need. The players need a shot. The players need someone to lead them and to guide them. I think that is Ruben Amorim. Now we can look at the negatives. And I do think the negatives so far, I do think maybe the striker is an issue. And people have said about Højlund being sort of an Amorim striker. I thought he would be an Amorim sort of favourite. And he sort of has been the favourite out of him and Xerxes. But I still don't really feel comfortable with what Amorim did to Joshua Xerxes. Bring him off in the game with, only 30 minutes. And I understood because, they did sort of improve against Newcastle when he came off, but they still didn't score. They still didn't concede. I suppose it was still 2-0 at the end of the day. But it's almost like Xerxes was the scapegoat. And don't get me wrong, he wasn't playing well. But was anyone playing well? And could you really not wait the 15 minutes to bring him off at half-time? That's just my issue with it. I think he probably could have waited. I don't think Newcastle are going to go score 4 more because of Joshua Xerxes. I don't think Man United are going to score either. But it just felt to me a little off and a little bit out of character for Ruben Amorim. I did make a sort of short and a TikTok. Make sure you follow that in the description down below as well. It's not the first time Amorim is bringing a player off of after 30 minutes. He's done it to Eduardo Quaresma at Sporting and Alfonso Moreira at Sporting as well. But there were 2 very different circumstances. Eduardo Quaresma had a yellow card and he was brought off, and Alfonso Moreira was just a time-wasting sub, to be honest. But yeah, I think it was extremely out of character. I know he's done it before, but I just think it led to more criticism to Xerxes. It wasn't really nice that Xerxes was sort of booed off by the fans. But I think that's just going to happen for Xerxes. And I think it's a tough point for him because he's at a crossroads now. He can either try and stay and prove himself to the fans and to Ruben Amorim, or he could be like, you burnt me doing that. I'm not want to play for you anymore. And I guess I can understand both sides of the coin. Apparently Juventus want him as well, so maybe that's the way to get out of Man United, to go there. And I wouldn't be surprised if he did try and leave. I do think what happened to him was very harsh. I don't know if I agree with it. I'm sort of on the fence. I do think he should have been subbed off, but I still think he could have waited till half time. But that's just my opinion. I'm not the manager. I don't get paid the money that Ruben Amorim does, and I'm sure Ruben Amorim has the, he knows what he's doing, basically. So I'm not going to nail the point, too much. But for me, I think that was definitely a negative at his time. Another negative of Ruben Amorim is his midfield pairings. He really can't figure out who should be playing in the midfield. And I look at the Newcastle game again, and I do think this was a pivotal game for Ruben Amorim at his time so far, because I don't know what he was trying to do with Eriksen and Casemiro. They're both quite old. They're both, of course, very good footballers, and both of them have sort of decorated careers. Casemiro more than Eriksen, of course, but you look at them and I just think, why would you start? You have on the other side striker like Isak, you have faster wingers like Gordon, you have Bruno Guimaraes, who's very good and very physical, Tonali and those guys as well. And for me, Eriksen and Casemiro should not be starting a Premier League game together in 2025, or at the time 2024, I suppose. But I just don't think they're up to Man United standard anymore. I think they're very good footballers, but I don't think they have what it takes anymore, especially more of Casemiro. I think Casemiro maybe can give you 50 minutes or 60 minutes of a good game, but he's not going to do the whole 90, sorry. But yeah, Eriksen as well, I just don't think that's a great move, and I don't think they should be starting anymore. I think he should look to the pivot of Ugarte and Mainu, or Ugarte and maybe go out in the markets by another centre mid, or Mainu and someone else. Maybe he doesn't like Ugarte. I think Ugarte will definitely be the main man. I think he's probably been one of the most improved under Ruben Amorim as well. But I just don't understand what he was thinking with this pivot, especially when you do have someone like Kobe Mainu on the bench. I do believe Ugarte was suspended or illness for that game. I can't remember. I think it was actually a suspension for that game. But you have Kobe Mainu on the bench, and for me, I think starting him instead of Eriksen and Ugarte changes this result. And, you know, I mentioned it earlier, brought off Xerxes very early for, actually for Kobe Mainu. And I think it was obvious that Kobe Mainu was the best fit for this game, not Ugarte and not Casemiro and Eriksen. So, yeah, and then Josh Xerxes was one who suffered because of that, because of Ruben Amorim's poor planning. And then Casemiro was brought off in the 60th minute anyway for Garnacho. So, yeah, for me, that midfield is the issue. And I think it's probably the biggest issue as well. But yeah, I think that's definitely another negative for Ruben Amorim. So for me, the positives, there's a bit more of them for me than the negatives. I think, you know, if time goes on, those negatives will increase. But for now, that's just personally what I've seen. I think Amorim will turn it around. But what does he need to turn it around? Of course, signings in January are a must. I don't know if they need to sell to buy, or they need to, you know, cut some of the squad down out on loan or something. But for me, I look at the position they need. A left back, definitely. I don't think Dallow's good enough to play that left back role. I think they need an out-and-out left back. And, you know, you got Alphonso Davies maybe coming in on a free transfer. Maybe that's it. Maybe go into the market in January and try and say, look, we'll give you this much for Alphonso Davies. It's either that or release for free. Maybe that's the route you can go down. Of course, there's some other good left backs out there in Europe as well you could go for. I think also maybe another midfield partner. If you're not convinced with Kobe Mainu, and Ruben Amorim I don't think is, you need another midfield partner for Ugarte. I look at the centre mid from Milan, Reindeer. I don't know his name, to be honest, but I know he's a very good footballer. I've seen him a few times and he looks very good. I would recommend Hjulmand, but I obviously don't want him to leave, and I don't think he'd leave in January. But there's a few other centre mids across football you could go for as well. I think Man United still do have that presence of, you know, the transfer market, that people will still go to Manchester United and will also go to play for Ruben Amorim too. So I think you can convince someone as well. And then I think lastly, I don't think all of these will come in January, but I do think a striker is needed. Højlund is not cutting it at the moment. Xerxes is not cutting it at the moment. Even if it is sort of a stopgap replacement, maybe you get a loan in, or maybe you wait till the summer to get a new striker in. I do think it's definitely needed for Ruben Amorim at this point. They definitely need a striker. So for me, getting one in has to be done. Personally, I don't think they need a new goalkeeper. I actually do like Onana. I do know he has some sort of, you know, concentration issues sometimes, but I think 9 times out of 10 he's actually pretty good. And I do think sometimes the mistakes are also come from set pieces or from the centre backs. But I don't think they'll spend more on centre backs. I think the long-term project is Lenny Yoro, maybe De Ligt and Harry Maguire. I don't know if Martinez is going to survive under Ruben Amorim. There's been comments made about his height and stuff, and maybe that's an issue as well, especially, like I said, from set pieces, Man United are just lost out there. I don't know what it is, but they all just seem like frozen. They don't know whose man they're marking. There's always a free man, and I think they really need to work on that as well. So, yeah, maybe a centre back comes in as well. I think, like I said, the long-term project is Lenny Yoro. So maybe Yoro is what they focus on for the rest of the season. But definitely a left back, a holding midfielder, and a striker are definitely positions that I think Ruben Amorim should improve. But like I said, Ruben Amorim is still doing very well in the Europa League. And for me personally, that is what I think Ruben Amorim should focus on. The top 4 is a bit out of reach now. I think it will take a miracle for Man United to get up there. The only way to get into the Champions League and make the Champions League money is to win the Europa League. The last 2 games are against Rangers and against FC Bucharest. So for me, those are 2 easy wins. No disrespect to any of the fans of the club. But you should focus all your time and energy into the Europa League, because that's the only way you're going to get into the Champions League. And I look at the other teams in the competition. Of course, you've got Spurs, you've got Porto, you've got teams like Lazio, Bilbao, Lyon, Frankfurt, Galatasaray, Real Sociedad. There's a lot of teams in there that will give a tough game. But when you look at the teams, I look at Tottenham, I look at Man United, I maybe look at Lazio, I look at Lyon, and I look at potentially Bilbao as well in terms of the strongest teams in there. And will they do it? I don't know. I think maybe if I said in my prediction video, spoiler if you've not watched it already, but I do think Spurs will try and focus on the Europa League as well for sort of the same reasons as Ruben Amorim. I think Postecoglou will look at that competition and be like, okay, this is the way we get into the Champions League. They're only 1 place behind, or 2 places behind Man United, and only 1 point off. So who knows what will happen there. But yeah, I think Ruben Amorim should focus more on the Europa League at this point. But yeah, that is my take on Ruben Amorim. If I were to give it a grade, in sort of the American grading system, I'd give it, I'll give it a C. I think, there are some things to work with. Obviously, he's not gone down too well at the moment. I do think some of the questionable issues are due to Ruben Amorim's tactical selections. And I know injuries. And I know, for example, Mason Mount was going to be an integral part of Ruben Amorim's system. Luke Shaw is injured again. So I don't know how he would have fit in. And I do think, you can make some of that part of it. He hasn't been incredibly lucky in terms of keeping a squad fit and injury-free. But I do think a lot of the things, Casemiro and Eriksen, for example, that is one of my biggest bugbears. How is that a midfield pairing in 2025? But I don't know. What are your thoughts on Ruben Amorim? If you give it a grade, what would you give it? But yeah, I'm in San Fonseca. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time, and peace.